Coming up on OTH, Raymond and I finally cover the preseason patch and all of the important changes that come with that for over an hour. Then we discuss the latest roster moves that have been going on in the LCS. We hope you enjoyed this episode of On the Hunt. Welcome everybody to episode 37 of On the Hunt, a League of Legends podcast. I'm your co-host Chris, aka the Discount Shopper. Because it's that time of the year, man. So I just be looking online and shit, but I don't actually buy anything, honestly. I don't really need anything.
Really?
For Black Friday this year.
You're not buying Christmas gifts? I thought you were gonna be all like that, saying you've got everybody.
True, dude. Actually, like
Christmas
you should really buy stuff ahead of time, like this time around, because it's gonna be, it's tough to buy stuff in stores nowadays.
Yeah.
And then like who knows what will happen with shipping and stuff. As you get closer and closer to Christmas. So yeah, honestly, buying stuff ahead of time is not a bad idea.
True. I'm already ahead of that. My family, we do it like where everybody gets like one person that they have to buy gifts for instead of like trying to buy gifts for everybody else. So
That's smart.
I already got mine on lock for my aunt.
For sure. Well, anyways, that's our other co-host Raymond. What's going on, man?
Not much, dude. Just been, we got the Arcane finale happened last weekend. Watched that. Been playing a bunch of League.
A bunch?
Kind of a bunch. I don't know. At least a few games, like most days. Been back in the swing of things a little bit. Definitely more than usual, considering like the last couple months. It's a new patch. I gotta be ready. I gotta be ready for the new season. Like we said last week, I didn't even finish my placements. So this year, I'm getting all prepped. I got 2 months to be prepped so that come January, I play at least 10 games and I'll be placed.
You say that, man. We'll see.
Yeah, true.
Well, you know what? I've actually come back to the game myself. I played a bit of Ultimate Spellbook, played some normals with a couple of different friends as well.
Nice.
And so, I played a couple of games on the new patch, and honestly, if you didn't tell me there was a new thing, I wouldn't have known, other than sometimes some of the towers are highlighted and that's it. And I don't know why.
That's objective bounties, dude. How have you not heard about objective
and now
bounties?
And now I do. So this week we skipped the patch notes last week because we were busy talking about other things. But this time around we're going to do pretty much a full run through of changes that are going to be final for season 12. So I guess I'll just stop being an idiot and call this preseason. And so they're introducing all the changes that will go in effect next year. And for some reason I had thought that it was going to be relatively small. I mean, this year came with all of the item changes, which I would say is a pretty big change to the game, because it more or less changes how champions interact with one another, and all the AD carries got Gale Force, and that changes a lot of things, to be fair, so on and so forth. And so, but this time around, I don't know how big of an impact these changes are going to make.
Yeah, I would definitely be with you on that. I think from the playing that I've done, this seems like one of the lighter preseasons in recent memory for sure. I think the new Drakes like feel like the biggest thing, and even then, I think right now they have like, it's like increased chance that you get like the Hextech or Chemtech map for the Dragon Soul and all that. So it's like overrepresented how much those change the game, I think. But overall, I think there's a few outliers in the items and stuff that we'll probably get to, but like for now, it doesn't seem like that big of a change this preseason.
Okay, yeah, good to hear. Let's just start up at the top. So, starting off first, we've got objective bounties, and what they say here is objective bounties are a way for losing teams to get back into the game. And so, when a team is behind in gold, there will be objectives that highlight on the map that will pay out extra gold bounties. And it highlights for both teams, although the losing team is who cashes out on them. So if you're the winning team, you'll just know what the losing team is going to be trying to do. And the game determines who is the losing team based on some factors that are happened in the game, mostly based around what objectives have been taken, how many dragons have been taken by the by the so-called winning team, so on and so forth. Personally, I actually have not won any games that I played, and
Really?
I don't know if I've ever taken advantage of objective bounties consciously or not. Um, what do you think of these so far? I personally, I think the concept of it. I mean, it just sounds cool. It gives more people reasons to fight over something, and it gives teams and people without a brain something to do, and just by the concept of it. So I
Yeah.
think I like it. I like the concept of it, but I don't know how it will really turn out. I would just have to give it a couple of goes myself. What do you think so far?
Yeah, I think so far a lot of the like reactions to it that I've seen have been pretty like anti-objective bounties, it seems like a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's just another comeback mechanic, like winning early game doesn't matter if it just means that like these guys will go and take towers later and get a whole bunch of gold." And I think it's like kind of fair. Like a lot of the time you'll open up the scoreboard if a team is like if you're really far ahead, you'll see like an 800 gold bounty on like the dragon or something, and you're like, what the fuck is that, dude? Like, why do they just get 800 gold for taking dragon? But like in my experience, I don't think it's been that big of a deal. Like it's 800 gold, but like all those bounties are split among your whole team, so it's different than when you see a 700 gold bounty on like the enemy AD carry. You finally get a shutdown on your mid lane mage or something, and you're like, damn, 1,000 gold in this pocket. It's like, well, if they get 800 gold, it's like, well, everybody gets like 125, and you're like, well, that's not that much. That's not so bad. We can deal with that, at least in my opinion. But we'll see how it plays out. I think they've already been making a lot of tuning to it. Like it's only a week into the patch, and they've had at least one hotfix around how often teams get objective bounties. So I think it's not as big of a deal as it was made out to be, at least in a lot of people's initial reactions. But I don't know. I'm still definitely still getting used to like how it actually plays out in the game. I feel like most of the time it's been the team that's winning usually still wins in my experience. It's not a like
Yeah,
objective bounties save the day kind of thing.
yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. Is I haven't if my team is losing, it's it's pretty unlikely we're gonna take any outer towers.
Hmm.
To be honest, let alone fight over any dragons. In that case, if there's people on the enemy team who are just like straight up stronger and aren't afraid to engage onto my team or something like that, and if it is split among people like you're saying, then I don't think it would be too impactful as well, especially if you're pretty far behind. And so um, I see the resentment for it if like in a weird way it punishes the winning team for winning,
Yeah,
and I could see in pro play how that can be a bad thing of like um eventually in a pro game eventually all the outer towers get taken. It's a matter of like
probably.
trading,
Yeah.
yeah, slowly trading, and then it's just how one team controls vision and so forth throughout the mid game that really determines the outcome of a game if the early game didn't decide it already. So I could see in that regard how objective boundaries could be detrimental to the winning team's advantage of having a slight lead earlier, and then it just gives objective bounties to the other team because they're calculated as being behind. And then I have seen that there have been a bunch of hot fixes or like mid patch kind of jumbles, like you were saying so far. So I hope that by the time the season launches and when pro play starts to start, and I'm not talking like Demacia Cup or something like that. I mean like real NA lock in tournament starts.
Yeah,
Then
the
I
the
hope that's
the
all
realest league
ironed
of
out.
them all, NALCS.
Yeah. Anything else for objective bounties?
Yeah, I'll say one other thing. Like anecdotally, I've my personal favorite champion that I've been spamming a bunch of has been Draven in this preseason so far. Mostly probably because I like won't get flamed as much for inting in preseason games with Draven. Um, but
Uh huh.
like I think have been some weird cases where there are champs that are like tuned like that, right? Like where an early gold lead is like expected. Like if I'm playing Draven and I get a kill or two early, it's like I'll have a lot more gold than the enemy team. But like you can have that happen, and at the same time, like the enemy top jungle gets like super far ahead, and it's like 5 kills or 6 kills between those two champs on the enemy team, and like I have like a 2 kill lead in bot lane, and then the rest of the game is like pretty even, and you'll see like eventually like we end up with objective bounties, even though they also have two strong members of their team or something. Like there are cases like that where it feels like out of tune because it's like, well, those guys are still fucking strong. Like I don't like our team isn't like way ahead. It's just like we've got a dragon or two, and they've been like dicking off while they have a bunch of like they just have scaled on like a couple people, but we've like accelerated really high on a Draven or something like that, and it brings like the team counts off, and I felt like that's kind of weird, but at the same time, it's like it makes sense, right? Like just from a pure gold lead perspective, but I think that's something that people outside of pro games where you're always watching like, oh, it's like the enemy team has a 1k gold lead, right? It's like that's not very much, but you can tell like I think most of the time people don't recognize that kind of thing in their own game because you don't constantly have it on the scoreboard, so it's really hard to track. And then in weird cases like that where it's like the enemy LeBlanc has 6 kills and we have 3 on Draven, but they have objective bounties, like how is that balanced? And it's like, well, we probably have a gold lead. I don't know what to tell you. That's just how it works. So we'll see how it goes, but I think I think it's good that Riot has already been like balancing things around it, like and tuning when they show up, because it does feel like something that's bad if it's too frequent or too powerful, right? Like too much gold is just getting handed away as soon as a team gets like 2k behind. It's like, well, why are we just giving away free gold as soon as someone gets in trouble? Like, don't hold their hands too much. But I like the idea of being able to spread the wealth outside of just being like having to kill a strong enemy carry or something.
Yeah, I can see what you mean there. I wonder if they. I'm actually surprised that they didn't do it in a way where it's like timed, I guess, where like it's not timed like at 10 minutes and then at 15 minutes the game will check who is above or behind in gold, and then like maybe teams could like strategically play around that or something. Um, I don't know how frequently it's calculated whether or not a team should get an objective bounty or something like that.
Yeah, I
I'll look forward to how they balance that.
yeah, I think it's a continuous thing. I'm not sure, but I'm like, it's probably like every 15 or 30 seconds it checks or something like that. Like I
Whoa.
haven't seen like it's definitely not like at 12 minutes or something if a team is behind. It always comes on at 12 minutes or 15 minutes or something. It's like it's happened earlier or later in games for me.
I see. Okay. Yeah, and it's just so weird when it like highlights Baron. Like, of course, I get it that if we take
Right,
Baron, that'd
let's take
be
Barrier.
a good injection of gold for my team, and or something like that. I just think that's funny. Okay, and then they've also made some jungle changes, so to speak. And with that comes two new dragons, and with new dragons, that means a new dragon buff, a new dragon soul, as for taking four dragons, and then also new changes to the map when it's that type of dragon souls. And so the first one that we can talk about is the Chemtech Drake. I'll just go through all three of those things for us, and then we can talk about it. And so what the Chemtech Drake does is that for each buff, it grants you up to 5% bonus damage per dragon against enemies with more health than you. The Chemtech Soul is kind of like Scion passive, I believe, where if you die, then you just revive, and I believe you take less damage and also deal less damage, and then you also deteriorate in health, just like Scion passive, I believe.
Yeah, it's like I think this was also in the Ultimate Spellbook. Like this was the dragon that was in Ultimate Spellbook when
Yeah,
that was at least the first go around. I don't know if it's the same now, if they just have normal dragons in or what.
they do. Yeah, they do have normal dragons now, and I do believe this is the same thing. That yeah, the Ruination Dragon, I think it was called. And then also with the map change, what that comes with it, the Chemtech Rift, it puts like camouflage zones throughout both teams' jungles, and then when you enter into those zones, you become invisible, camouflaged. In this case, and camouflage is the one where if you're near an enemy, then the enemy can see you. There's also some more nuances as well. So if you are camouflaged, then you deal up to 10% more damage to people who have more current health than you. So there's that as well. What do you think about the Chemtech Drake so far? Have you and like you were saying earlier, currently right now the rates are boosted for the two new dragons, so you're supposed to see them more often just to get you
used to it. Like,
used to them. Yeah,
yeah,
affiliated or accustomed to them.
yeah. There you go.
So yeah, what do you think of the Chemtech Drake so far?
Yeah, this one I think is like it's kind of interesting. I don't know the buff you get just from like having stacks of the Jake like doesn't seem that impactful. It's really hard to like tell that I'm doing more damage to people with more health than me. I think it's really easy to be against tankier teams, just in general. Um, I don't know. That feels like a really unimpactful part of this dragon, but the dragon soul is pretty oppressive, I think. Like having just anybody have Scion passive, but like you can use items and abilities and stuff like that. So it's like it's really hard to deal with, I think, if you're already behind, and generally that's the case when teams get soul. To have to kill enemies twice, like it's harder to pick people and not trade for it, like stuff like that. Um, so that's kind of annoying. I haven't seen it too much where it's gotten to the soul point for this dragon, but I think there has been, like I've seen posts on the subreddit about the dragon soul being like significantly higher win rate for Chemtech souls than like any other soul. Um, and then the camouflage zone is kind of weird to me still. I don't think I've played against any teams that have really tried to utilize it like specifically. Most of the time I think you're just like you walk around the the camouflage zone as much as the enemy does, and you can't really drop pink wards. There are no bushes. I think that's the weirdest part, is that it gets rid of a bunch of bushes that are normally in your jungle, and
Uh
instead you're
huh.
just like relying on camouflaged areas. But I don't know. It's weird. I don't think that has had as much of an impact as like the soul has.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way about the Rift. I think it'll take time for people to get used to it and then take advantage of practically stealthing yourself and then maybe setting up for ambushes in your jungle or the enemy team's jungle. So I think that can be exciting, and it'll just cause a bunch of chaos in games, which is not exciting if it happens to my team.
Yeah.
But um, but maybe it'll make for some good games, quote unquote. And then as far as the soul goes, I don't think I've seen the soul yet in my own game, so I'll have to report back to you on that one.
All right. As you get in some more, I'll definitely be asking you next week. See how you feel.
All right, and the other dragon is the Hex Tech dragon, and so for this one, each Hex Tech Drake gives you 5 ability haste and 5 attack speed per stack, which I think is kind of cool to get free attack speed. Whether or not that's helpful for your champion is another thing to say, but I think bonus attack speed always feels nice, whether you're AD or AP. For the Dragon Soul, it's your next attack or ability is like Static Shiv, I guess, where it bounces up to 3 nearby people, and then it also slows them by 40 or 45 or 35% if you're melee or ranged. And I believe it deals damage as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit of damage. It's basically old Static Shiv, but with the slow attached to it.
Oh, I see. It deals damage and then it slows, and the slow is also stronger the more stats that you have, the more health or AD or AP that you have. I see. And it slows for 2 seconds. So I think that's fucking broken. If you're if you just become an AOE Rylai's just by getting the dragon, that should be really strong.
Yeah, it's on a cooldown, which is, important to know. It's like it's similar to Infernal Drake. I think it might be a longer cooldown than Infernal Soul, but
Uh huh.
um but yeah, it seems pretty powerful. I think the only clips I've seen of this, I haven't seen this in my games yet where someone's gotten a Hextech Soul, but I've seen clips of I think Shaco players where it was like bugged with Shaco boxes or the clone or something. So when the clone would die, it would like all 3 boxes from the clone's death would be procking the slow like constantly on everybody, and like that looked OP, but that's like obviously a bug, and having an 8-second cooldown on the soul for normal people is definitely interesting, unique. It's like the old energized builds when they first made Stormrazor, and you could stack like Stormrazor, Static Shiv, Rapid Fire, deal
Yeah.
like 250 damage and slow the entire enemy team. It's like that, which I think is cool. But yeah, I haven't seen it in any games where it's actually happened.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely feels good when you have um when you have Storm Razor and you just slow somebody as AD carry, and then they try to start walking away, but then they realize that they're slowed, and now it's too late, and now they just ping your Storm Razor as they die.
Yeah,
So
right.
it feels pretty good. And then lastly, for the map change that comes with this is that um, several hex gates appear around the map, like two inside of your base, two next to on both sides of your jungle, one next to blue buff and one next to dragon, kind of. Um, I guess it kind of depends on which if you're blue or your red side. So I think there's
But
six in total,
yeah,
six
they mirror
pairs.
to the same space, so I think you covered it a bit based on those four, basically, right?
Yeah, and then there's also like one more that's on one next to Baron and one next to Dragon as well.
Yeah.
And it says pretty much you just click on the hex gates and you teleport from one end of it to the other, and there's a 30-second cooldown. And if you get interrupted, there's a channel, and the channel's like 2 seconds, 2 or 3 seconds maybe. And if you get interrupted during that channel by damage or stun or whatever, then you get interrupted. Is what I mean to say. Um, what do you think about the hex gates so far? I only played one game where I realized they were there, and I I could not get used to it, and I just feel nervous about taking them because I don't know if that's something. Well, at least I feel nervous about taking the ones that are out on the map. Taking the one from your base to Wolf Camp, that doesn't feel dangerous, really.
Right.
And you should just do it every time that you're getting out onto the map faster.
Right.
But taking the one from like Blue Buff to behind the Dragon Wall or vice versa behind the Baron Wall, that one feels pretty weird to me. Unless you're using it to escape, but like using it to go deeper into enemy territory, in my opinion, blindly. I feel like that's like ultra dangerous, and I just know that my teammates are gonna do it solo, and they're just gonna get caught out. So I get pretty nervous about these so far. I've only played one game with it, but what do you think about these hex gates so far? And then we can you can talk about the buff and the soul as well.
Yeah, I think definitely for me the hex gates are interesting. I think like you said, the first game that I played it, it was like every time I walked out of base, I was like, oh shit, I should have taken the gate. Like I forgot these
Yeah.
exist. It's so weird. Um, but as I don't know, as I've seen them more and as I've played them some more, it's like there's definitely interesting moves you can do with it. Like I think the ones like that cross the middle of the map are pretty cool. Like or I can see teams like as people get more used to it, or as you get particular champions that like can utilize it better. Um, it can be probably pretty powerful around like objective standoffs. Like being able to go from like you're on blue side contesting dragon, and you're playing someone like Kiana or something that wants to get on the flank, right? But you show up late or whatever the reason is, they have stuff worded out, and you can take the gate and then like go behind them like at their blue buff and get like some kind of sick ulti off to initiate a fight or whatever. Like I think there's a lot of opportunities for that, or like you said, like you can kind of overextend and then get like like chase through an inhibitor tower or something to kill somebody in an enemy base, and then take the hex gate out and get away. And there's a little bit like if you've taken it like as you appear, there's a little bit of like rise ulti indicators where it shows like where people are going to teleport into.
Yeah.
So like if you're the team that gets out fast and goes through it first, like you have the same kind of thing as like a bard portal where they can't follow you like really safely, or else you're like ready to prep and initiate on them as they go through the gate. So I think those are cool things. But yeah, like you said, it's similar, I think, for me to the camouflage zone, where I don't think people have figured out how to use them yet, except for getting out of base faster. But once they do, I'm sure there are like some cool things that teams will figure out how to do with.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you can interrupt people out of it, because I remember when the blast plants first came out, and it felt like people were getting away from you and like being lucky about it, or like
Mm,
it when blast plants first came out, it felt like people were running away from you as they should, and then they happened to get away with the blast plant, and it didn't feel like they were planning that. It just happens to be there now that they can escape with it. And
yeah,
then of course people have taken that into account when, or I hope they are, when they're invading or something, and they're making sure that they have a way out just in case things go sour or something like that. And
Right.
definitely when you're about to take Baron, you pop the plant behind it, so people can't use it to get inside and make for an easy Baron steal. So people are more aware of it now, and you get accustomed to that stuff slowly. So I think that it's the same way with this. And then, yeah, it kind of sucks that the gates kind of work like board portal, like you're saying. Like it feels super dangerous to chase somebody through it because one, you don't know what's on the other side, and two, like it's kind of telegraphed where you're going to appear once you end up on the other side.
Yeah.
And so,
If it was instant though, it'd be
yeah,
fucking broken.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it is interesting. I don't know if I would say I dislike it yet. I'll have to play a couple more games with that to see how that goes. Any last? Oh, and then do you want to talk about the Dragon Soul or the Drake, or
I think we
the?
talked about the soul a little bit. The Drake buff, I don't know. It's nice. I think this is a better direction. I think the next thing we'll talk about is the Cloud Drake buff, and they've reworked that a little bit because like since this is giving you just flat ability haste, there's no longer the ultimate ability haste thing on the Cloud Soul or Cloud Drake. So I
Yeah,
think that's nicer. I feel like ultimate ability haste on its own was already like a weird thing to have, and it just made for like obnoxious edge cases of like echoes ulting 3 times in a fight or something like that when teams manage to stack them. So I'm cool with just having the normal ability haste on this, and attack speed like you said I think is nice. But other than that, it's just this soul is definitely like a more like the soul is more impactful, like obviously impactful I think, and the buff is like a quiet but obviously impactful thing too, which can feel good for a lot of champs.
a yep. I think the same thing. Yeah, so just we can just round out the Cloud Drake real quick. They are changing the Cloud Drake once again. Like you're saying, like you said, for season 11, it gave ultimate ability haste. Now they're taking that away and giving it back the out of combat movement speed, as well as some slow resistance per Cloud Drake. But the Dragon Soul and the map change for Cloud Drake is going to be the same.
Yeah,
They also. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I like this direction for Cloud Drake. I think like having only the move speed on the soul buff before felt like really strange to me, I think. And this like we're back to the roots of Cloud Drake where it's just move speed, and I like that.
Yeah, and I think it feels more intuitive as well. That like the Cloud Drake makes you move faster around the map, and then also makes your champion move faster too. So I think
Hmm.
that's a. I liked it before, and I'm glad that that's coming back as well. And then they're also making a huge change to the Rift Scuttler as well. If for a couple of years now, it feels like the scuttle has been pretty important, a pretty large source of XP, and therefore contention for junglers to fight over or path around, and really take that into account to take it when they spawn and stuff like that. But this year they're going to severely reduce the XP gain on it um, by 80% actually. So I'm not sure how important it's going to be for people to or junglers to prioritize the scuttle anymore, or contest for both scuttles, or think that
Yeah.
they're really ahead if they get both and the other jungler doesn't. And so I just think that's an interesting direction. I don't care either way, I guess. But what do you think about the scuttle change?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it, but it's important to note this is just the first scuttle spawn, like for both sides of the map. So the first they'll two will spawn, one in each river at the beginning of the game at 3.5 minutes, right? And those are the only ones that have the reduced XP and gold. Past that, every respawn of the scuttles are still like it's still an important passive, or an important camp that gives you a lot of golden XP.
Oh,
But
okay.
it just the first one is like screwed up, so it's no longer like where if you like you said if you lose the first scuttle contest or your lanes are weaker or whatever and you can't contest the scuttle and you get double crowd or whatever, you're no longer like two whole camps behind and really screwed in the early game. Because that's like often the difference between like how most champions might do like a level 3 clear and then try to go gank a lane or do a scuttle and gank a lane. Like that's no longer the difference between you being level 4 and not being level 4 and being level 3 instead, of the enemy jungler being like 4.5 and then if they have a successful gank or they kill you in the contest, then like now they're level 5 and you're level 3, and it's just like really snowbally from there. So I think this is a good change. It's a little ham-fisted, I feel like, being, where it's just that first one. Like that is tough, I think, a lot of the time to deal with. It just feels wrong. Like there has to be some other way to do it. But I don't think it's terrible that that's the way it happens. Um, but yeah, I think it's nice that they've saved Blabber from like having to int his way
Yeah.
out of every game.
Yeah, Cloud9 really paid off the Riot department there. No,
Right.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, I'm interested to see how what kind of effect this actually has on the game.
Yeah, I mean, like you figure it makes it a little less important, right, to pick or to worry about early like lane control, or like like mid lane doesn't have to like worry about their jungler crying because they screwed up level 3 or something, right? Like
Yeah,
that's less impactful, which is nice. I think it's tough just because like you don't want to make lane unimportant, right? Like that's a nice thing I think to have as laners. Like it's like, oh, if I got a good trade and hit level 3 first and got like a huge wave crashed into their tower, you don't really have anything to play for. Like it's really unlikely usually that you can dive solo like without your jungler, um, or that you can really get a good trade under tower if you're not full on diving. So like having something like Scuttle to pull your laners into a jungle and like skirmish early is nice, but I think I think it's good that it's not so swingy if you did lose, because like you could still try and like pull off an invade, right? Like if you wanted to go into their enemy jungle and do the same thing, like fight them off Gromp and take a Gromp, like that's a similar pattern now than like contesting old Scuttle would have been, but obviously a little more aggressive, which I think is important to incentivize aggressiveness rather than like making the contest at Scuttle in the neutral river like a necessity for both teams.
yeah, I've definitely felt that pain of like playing a mid lane matchup where the other mid laner is just a little stronger for like the first couple of levels, or
Yeah,
they have a slight XP lead on me because of like range difference or something like that, and then that ends up turning into a scuttle conversion, and then yeah, my jungler's whining for the rest of the game or something
right.
like that. So I know what you mean. And then also with this season, they're also bringing a couple of new items to here, about 5 or 6 of them, so we can just run through all of them. The first one is called Crown of the Shattered Queen. It's an item for AP mages. It's going to consist of Lost Chapter, Kindle Gem, and Amp Tone. So that gives ability power, health, mana, and ability haste. It has 2 passives that are kind of like Malzahar passive. So just by having that item, you get a buff. I guess it's like yeah, Banshee's Veil or Malzahar passive, or the next damage that you would take is reduced by 75%. And then it lasts for a little bit longer after you take that damage as well. And then also while you're the passive is called Safeguard, and while you're safeguarded, you also gain AP based on your champion level as well. So while you have this, quote unquote Banshee's Veil kind of passive on you, you gain ability power, and then when you would take damage, it's severely reduced until like your bubbles popped, I guess. And then also the mythic passive, as this is a mythic item, grants a move speed and ability power. You were saying earlier that some champions are abusing this item, or they're doing really well with it. Have you seen much of this item so far?
Yeah, I think mostly what I've seen is a lot of like, and I guess personally, I haven't seen a ton of Silas's doing that, but this, I've heard that that's like a pretty powerful build is going Shattered Queen on Silas. But a lot of control mages I've seen like using this item. Like I think victors are using this to a lot of success, and it's partially a symptom of it just being preseason and people figuring things out and probably being like building suboptimally or something like that. But I think that overall it's just pretty useful, and good at like keeping people alive from a lot of assassins, like you said. I mean, it's like Malzahar passive and it lasts for a little bit after initial engage, so like you're saved a little bit unless a enemy champ like pokes it out successfully or can wait out the damage reduction on it and re-engage with their full rotation. So I think it's just been pretty powerful on a lot of those like control mage types that can scale and avoid confrontations because of it.
Yeah, I think I like the concept of the item, so it doesn't just feel like you get jumped 100 to 0. You know, like you were saying, you do have to get rid of it first, and then you can get all in. So I think that gives you just a little bit of a buffer room for counterplay, I suppose. And maybe that's broken, but it also feels kind of fair, or not fair, but it feels nice at the same time that something like this is in the game.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think it I think you're right. I think it sounds nice, but I can see how if it was like easily abused, like if some champ like there's a Xerath or something that can use it and you build comps around protecting Xerath or whatever, like I can see how it would be really frustrating if you finally get an opening, and then you just can't do anything damage to him because he was safeguarded during your burst, which is annoying. Even if it means like it's obviously a draft difference or whatever, like I feel like that's just can feel annoying.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Yeah, and also it sounds like it's kind of strong because you get bonus AP just by not being touched. But then it sounds pretty easy to get rid of it really quick, and then we can fight, just like Banshee's Veil or something like that. So we'll see if it's too oppressive or if it gets any changes by the time January comes around.
Yeah.
The next item we're going to talk about is called Even Shroud. This one is a tank item that builds out of Kindle Gem and Aegis of the Legion. So it gives health, ability haste, armor, and magic resist. The effect on it is that after immobilizing champions or being immobilized, that target that takes increased damage for 5 seconds. And then the mythic passive that comes with this is 5 armor and 5 magic resist. I like this so far, and they also wrote here that like for some engaging kind of tank supports, really you could like the best mythic you can take is like Locket or and
Mhm.
maybe Shirelia's, but this just gives you another option for like if you want to be an offensive engager, then you can do this, and then that person's gonna take bonus damage from your teammates and stuff like that. So I like the concept of it so far. What do you think about this item?
Yeah, I think this is kind of a cool item too. It's like the old Abyssal Mask, right? The passive from that, which is a neat passive to have. Like I think it's fun to make other people do damage for a lot of people and a lot of characters too, like a Nautilus or whatever. And I think it probably feels better to be able to opt for damage than like they mentioned in the patch notes, like just going for Locket if like you're a tank support. Um, so I think that's good. I like it because it means also that my friends who are like, well, I'm a tank support like Leona, I'll just go like Sunfire because that's a tank item. Like now they have yet another option where I'm like, don't go Sunfire. It's a waste of gold. You don't have that much gold. Just go support item. Now this one will still make them feel like, hey, you can go damage at the same time, but still get a cost efficient support item. So that's good for me. But I think it'll be interesting to see. I'm almost worried that it's like a trap still, like only having 12% damage. I think I saw Ole talking
Yeah.
about it. Like 12% damage increase is nice, but if you're only like getting it on one person, it might not. It's probably almost always not more effective than doing like just getting a good locket shield off. Like quick math on it. If you target like a 1500 health like carry or something in a team fight, like 25 minutes in the game, right? And you kill them with your damage, then that means that you probably with this like helped deal like 150 damage to the carry. But then if you just had a locket and successfully shielded someone with locket and it like reduced damage on both of you, it was like a 200 locket shield, then you saved 400 damage the other way. So I can see how this feels good, but is like just mathematically not the right choice a lot of the time. So we'll see how it works out.
Yeah, now that you mention it, like 12% is not that much.
It can be like, I don't know, League of Legends is a game of breakpoints. Like in theory, right? Like if 12% is all you need to have killed someone that you wouldn't have killed otherwise, it's good. But it's hard to make that decision and not and be sure that that was the right one when something like getting a locket and blocking 1,000 damage in a team fight and having an extra 10 magic and armor or magic resistant armor on your entire team is just like clearly the better option most of the time.
Yep, I see what you mean. Moving along, the next item we can talk about is called Axiom Arc. It's for AD assassins. It's not a mythic; it's just a legendary. So it builds out of Serrated Dirk and Warhammer, which is the assassin build or assassin
True.
items, just like fucking a million longswords.
Feels like
Uh,
Riot
so
should figure out a different build path. Like somehow there should be another item besides Caulfield's Warhammer that Serrated Dirk builds with.
yeah, well, it's the exact stats that they want. So it's attack damage, ability haste, and lethality. Only 10 lethality. I guess I should mention that. And the passive is whenever an enemy champion dies within 3 seconds of you damaging them, it refunds 25% of your ultimate's total cooldown. Um, and so when I first read that, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. If you kill somebody, presumably using your ultimate, then you get 25% of your ultimate cooldown back. And that can be really huge for, level 6 Zed or level 6 Talon or something like that. So, well, I guess you're not going to get this item at level 6. This is going to be like your second item at the soonest. Um, so I guess it'd be like level 9 or something like that. But anyways, what do you think about this item so far? Have you seen a lot of it?
So far, I will say this item is the sole reason that I've stopped banning Silas in every game, and instead now I ban Nocturne. And it's 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 an item that in my head, like I think it sounds good, right? It sounds powerful. I don't think it's like I don't think it's a trap item like even shroud like I said might be like a trap you should just go lock it. I don't think this is necessarily a trap, but is fucking annoying whenever somebody just like picks Nocturne or Zed or something and rushes this item, and then if they are even slightly ahead, they can you ulti for a kill in mid lane or something. You get the kill. You have ulti up again, and it saves you, especially on like for me on Nocturne, it's like that's a 2 minute cooldown or 2.5 minute or whatever it is at level 1, and now you take off 25% of that, so it's like over 30 seconds, and then they just can go to another lane, or if you get 2 kills with it, it's 50% uptime like increased. Um, I it to play against it is the most annoying thing that I've seen so far this preseason. Just like I don't want to have to worry about Nocturne getting 3 ultis in a fight or something like that. Like it's ridiculous when it gets super snowbally. Um, I see the thought behind it. Like I think it's an interesting item to like make ultimate trades better, right? I'm less worried about ulting to kill a support or something because now I have this a sooner chance to go and use it on somebody else. Like
Yeah,
that's an interesting thing, but to me so far it feels like it's just way overtuned for how powerful of an effect that is.
for sure. I can see where you're coming from. Yeah, maybe they'll knock that number down, or maybe they'll put a cooldown on it or something like that. So you don't get it doesn't get a refund of like 50 or 75% if you get an assist on 2 or 3 people or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, maybe there's some changes due for this one, but I think it's cool so far, and it's a pretty expensive item. So, but it does have every stat that those kind of AD assassins want. So we'll see what changes are coming forward for this.
Yeah, that's true. I was thinking about it today, and I was thinking like I could easily see this like you said, if this had a cooldown on it, if it was like once per ulti cooldown, I'd be fine with 25%. If they want to keep it like on every takedown, I'd be fine with like 10% ultimate cooldown reduction for it.
Yeah,
Like that sounds okay to me. Like just having more uptime, I think is the important part of it, right? Like just you want to have like more opportunities. Like if you're a Nocturne and you get a successful gank off, like I want to be ready to go and gank again sooner, right? Like I'm fine with that, but it shouldn't mean that like you are constantly ulting as soon as you get a successful kill.
for sure. The next item we have here is called Shadow Flame. This one seems to be for AP champions. Builds out of Hextech Alternator and Needlessly Large Rod. Again, it's just a legendary item, so this has 100 ability power and some health on it. And the passive is damage to champions benefits from, I guess you gain 10 to 20 magic penetration based on the target's current health, and you get more magic penetration for that instance of damage that you cause if the target was recently shielded, which I don't know if how that's calculated. So it sounds like you just deal more damage to people. It's you get magic penetration through the passive of this on your spells, to my understanding, and then just a little bit more if they were recently shielded. So it's just an item to help you deal more damage through shields, I suppose. An AP version of Serpent's Fang in a weird way. What do you think about that so far?
Yeah, this one is a little weird. I think this one is kind of a trap item too for probably most people. Like I think if I'm reading it right, it's like you deal more damage to people at lower health through Magic Pen. Like you get Magic Pen against people with lower health essentially. And then you get the maximum value of this, like as if they were at, 1,000 health or the lowest threshold here. You get the maximum value if they were recently shielded, regardless of what their current health is. So, like if they're a full health ADC at level 18, but they have a shield on them, then you get the most magic pen kind of thing. So it's like it's execute damage in a theoretical sense, and it's also shield break. I think this one I was surprised at how they marketed it, like kind of when like before preseason went on PBE and they're like, we have plans for a new AP item that deals with shields. I was like, okay, that's interesting. I don't know if they're gonna give Serpent's Fang like just in an AP package, but then they gave this, and I was like, this feels underwhelming. Just in general, like I don't think just having Magic Pen. It's one of those things that it's really hard to tell, like that you have more Magic Pen and that's like doing what you expect it to do and like give you a lot more damage. Um, so I think this is going to be one of those things like most of the time. I saw a post on Reddit actually today. If you're interested in the math, you can probably find like a very detailed post about it of like the breakdown of when this is more efficient than like a void staff pickup, and the TLDR is like it's a pretty low value like most of the time. Like you just need to have like it's like 50 MR or something, or like 50 to 60 MR, 45 to 55, something like that, where most of the time that's the break point. Um, and some of that has to deal with like how much AP you get from this item because it builds out of a large rod. Like you get 100 AP from this item compared to void staff, which has been lowered to like 55 or something in this patch as well. So like it's most of the time going like mythic into this is probably going to be better unless you're against like a shit ton of range champs that are going to be low HP anyway, and they're not going to build a Mara because you're the sole AP threat or something like that. It's like it's weird situations like that. This might be fine if you're also building Void, like because Void is going to bring down their total MR first through the percent reduction, stuff like that you can figure out. But it's I can see where this is like easily the trap where somebody says like, oh, but this builds out a large rod, you get a bunch of AP and it also has Magic Pen. I should just go this instead of Void Staff, and I don't think that's the case most of the time.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I'm glad for those kind of people who do the math for these sort of things. Yeah, glad to see that Void Staff is still the champ, I guess. Or I guess this
Most
item
of
will
the
need
time.
some changes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll see how it works out. Like I think this is one of those, I don't know, for as long as Ellis has been around, you'd think that like people would recognize more of like what the obvious trap items are and would stop like building Horizon Focus second on Zoe and shit like that. But they still do it, and Riot still keeps the item in the game, so like they know that people buy it and expect it to do whatever it is that they are buying it for, but there are better options. So I'm sure it'll stick around. I don't know if it'll need changes, because I think it does have its use cases, but I just don't know if people will use it correctly.
for sure. Yeah, I feel the same way about that. What is it? Horizon Focus. Yeah. The next item is an interesting item. It's a new tier item. So instead of an AD or an AP item, they've made a tank item that builds out of Tear the Goddess. So it builds out of Tear, Kindle Gem, and Ruby Crystal. So it gives health, mana, and ability haste. And the passive is you gain bonus health equal to 8% of your mana. and then just just like any other tier item. Oh, it's called Winter's Approach. I don't know if I said that. And just like any other tier item, you gain stacks to build up your your tier stacks. Um, and then when it gets completed, just like Seraph's Embrace or Mana Mura Muramana.
Man immune to Muramana and archangels into Ceres.
Thank you. There we go. So yeah, just like that, this item transforms into another item called Fimbule Winter, which of course just gives you more health, more mana, and the same ability haste, or no, the same amount of health but more mana, which is the same amount that you stacked onto it. And then it also gives you a passive on the item when you complete it. And so the passive is slowing or immobilizing an enemy champion consumes 3% of your current mana and grants a shield for 3 seconds, taking from your mana to make this shield, if I understand correctly.
Yeah.
The sh- and the shield is also increased by 80% if more than one enemy is nearby. So it sounds like it can be pretty strong because I don't. It's an 8 second cooldown. So it sounds like, yeah, if you slow or if you're a melee champion, if you slow somebody or if you immobilize somebody, then you get a shield that's bigger with the more champions that are nearby. Or if at least more than one champion is nearby, then it can be a fat shield of
Mhm.
like around 180 to 280, I guess. Or I can't really do the math right now. Um, but also more based on the amount of mana that you have. So, long story short, it's a tank item that builds out of tier, and then it gives you a passive. When you complete it, it gives you a passive that gives you a shield that scales on the amount of mana that you currently have.
Mhm.
So it uses your mana for the passive, just like or Mirror Mana would. What do you think
Used to.
about this item so far? Or yeah, that's true. It used to do that. What do you think
um,
about this tank item?
yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's nice that they gave tanks another mana item. It feels like it's like since mythic items happened and you had to go a Bomby Cinder item, like you don't have a good choice to go mana. Like Frozen Heart is the only real tank item that has mana in it, and otherwise you're just relying on like uh any Bomby Cinder item for wave clear to like not have to waste your mana from spells. So it's nice to have a tier item build into something tanky. I think the passive is like an interesting one, like having the shield, having it be like better in multi champion combat, like that kind of thing, like is like a good option for it. I haven't seen that many people building it to be honest, but that's probably just because I've seen more like bruisers or whatever kind of thing. Um, I think I've seen I think LS is on the new sauce of he's trying to get Sanchovies to play. That's how I've seen it, where he's making Sanchovies terrorize the NA server by playing Tarek top, and you go tier early and then go Frostfire Gauntlet and then build this item, the Fimble Winter. And I don't think it's good, but it's funny to watch him int with it. So it seems like I think there are interesting use cases for it, and I hope that this means like you get some like Maokais and stuff that show back up in the top lane, because I feel like the only tank top that we've seen in the last like few years has been like Ornn. So hopefully this lets some other tanks like show up and be able to use spells and stuff like that. But I don't know. I haven't seen it too much, so I can't say that much about if it's actually good or not.
Yeah, I doubt anybody's making this item, and then yeah, even if they were, then I don't know how fast you could stack this item, and then yeah, how effective it would be. But I will say that having played a lot of Maokai, Ornn, and that kind of stuff, yeah, you can run out of mana pretty fast on some champions, especially like after sometimes you stay out on the map too long and you do run out of mana pretty quickly. And so yeah, I'm glad that there's an item to address those kind of concerns if you're that kind of player.
Yeah, people might even go like tank Gragas with this item again. Like I remember, I think it was Hooney that was doing that in LCS, where he like when tank Gragas was kind of more of a thing, he was playing tank, but like would just build a tier early, and people were like flaming the shit out of him. Like, why does he have tier? He's not building Ceres, is he? And then he would just like sit on tier for the 700 mana.
Yeah. That makes sense. And yeah, especially for Grad, because you get health back as well when you cast your spells and stuff.
Mhm.
Anything about if you want to go back on any of the new items that we just talked about?
No, I think we've touched pretty much everything that I have to say about the new items. They're
For sure.
pretty cool overall. I think they'll find homes in builds most of the time. None of these are that niche, I think.
Yep. And then for all the existing items, they've done a couple of changes for a lot of them, actually. Was there any that stuck out to you so far? I guess I want to talk about the change to Turbo Chem Tank. It looks like instead of the Bomby Cinder passive, when you complete this item, they take away this the Bomby Cinder kind of Sunfire effect, and they give you more of a Dead Man's Plate effect that builds up charges as you move and stuff. And then at 100 stacks, your next attack is a slight AOE attack. It looks like dealing magic damage to all nearby enemies. So I guess this is supposed to help you, clear jungle camps, but also just be a little different from the Sunfire passive, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, so that's my pick for this, is I guess. Is there anything else that catches your attention here?
Yeah, I think I'd shout out like along the same lines since we're there already. The other tank item change, and that's on Frostfire Gauntlet. They made it so that the basic attacks that generate the slow field, like they've had in the past, uh, it used to just be a slow field, but now when it creates that field, it also does AoE damage. So it's like Iceborne Gauntlet was before. Still leaves a
Yeah,
slow field, but now does AoE damage that scales off your max health, which I think is nice. I feel like it just felt wrong. I don't think this is going to be a huge buff, but you'll see more champs that like probably didn't take it before just because it felt weird. Now take it again. Um, and then other than that, I think the other one that I think is also interesting is the force of nature change, where they shifted it back more towards the adaptive home like fantasy of being like a constant magic damage like counter. Now you like gain stacks whenever you get CC'd or take magic damage, and then at 6 stacks you take 20% reduced magic damage and get move speed. So instead of like the stacking move speed buff that I had before, only it's more about taking less magic damage, which I think is nice. I know we haven't seen like Cassiopeia's or anything like wreak havoc on people in a while, but it has felt like there hasn't been as many options for magic resist if you do need it as a tank. So I think this is a better one if you're focused on countering magic damage dealers than you had before.
yeah. I also want to talk about the Abyssal Mask change now that I've read through this. Last season, it used to be when you immobilize somebody, they take increased damage for by 15%, which was interesting. Most of the time it's mostly for tanks. When the tanks CC somebody, then they just take increased damage. Um, Now they're changing that so the nearby enemies become cursed, meaning their magic resist is reduced by 5 plus 1% of your bonus health up to 20. And bonus health is the health that you buy and stuff like that. And then for each nearby enemy that is cursed, you get 7 magic resist. So it incentivizes you to be around people to reduce their magic resist, and then therefore your teammates deal more damage. I thought that was interesting. Um, and you just have to be around them. You don't have to particularly CC them, I guess, which is
Right.
the cool thing.
Yeah, I
And then
think this is nice. I think having other like also having the like old Abyssal Scepter like passive back in the game, having more ways to reduce like resistances, I think is interesting for tanks too. Just like we said with Even Shroud, like having a tank option to make people do more damage rather than just like have to CC them so that carries can hit them is like a nice fantasy for players to have.
yeah,
And
I'm
this
glad you.
probably ruins breakpoints for the Shadow Flame and Void Staff and stuff too if you have a teammate with Abyssal Mask.
Oh, true.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Abyssal Scepter because I remember back then I used to build that item a lot, and then I remember towards the end of its lifespan, they nerfed it in a way where they like reduced the range on it, and then it didn't make sense to build Abyssal Scepter on like Cassiopeia and certain other champions anymore because like they were never that the enemy champion shouldn't be inside of your Abyssal Scepter range
Right.
if you're playing properly. So I wonder. I'm curious as to what the range is for this item. Um, to lower other people's mag resist. You know how close up to them you'll need to be.
Yeah, maybe it'll be like a Katarina item. Think about that one.
Yeah, true. I'm scrolling through here. They've made a ton of changes to the mages items. I don't know how if any of them are important, so I'm just kind of scrolling through really quick. Um,
Yeah, I think there's a couple that I'll say real quick. They made Everfrost cheaper, which is just like it seems pretty like important. I've seen a lot more champions go Everfrost recently. It's like it's 400 gold cheaper. They reduced the AP on it and the AP scaling of its mythic passive, but everything else stayed the same. So it's just intended to be like an earlier spike on par with the like or the Shattered Queen item, since those are people like kind of that aren't intentionally building like super high damage. I think that's the main one. The other one that's kind of weird, we've seen Seraph's Embrace get a changed where they're making it so that the passive on it, on the like on both items, is you gain ability haste equal to your a percentage of your max mana instead of AP, which it seems weird, but it's there now. So it's definitely like less of a raw AP item and more of like I want to spam a lot of spells. And then also you get like the old Roa passive kind of where you can restore health equal to mana spent on or on casts of spells. So you get a little bit of like staying power in having more mana, more ability haste, and more health in like extended trades if you're playing someone like Xerath or Ziggs and spamming spells all the time.
oh yeah, that's weird that that's only on the completed Seraphs. Yeah, that like catalyst passive. I remember what you're talking about.
hmm I think it's an interesting thing. Tanks or tanks mages, like it has felt like since they made that Seraph's change and since Roa doesn't exist, you're always super squishy. Like a lot of times you had at least some item that gave you a little bit of base health before, and now it's like shifted just way more into raw AP and other stats. But this change I think is nice to give you some health back instead, and also the health regen part of it.
For sure. How about these lethality items? They've made a couple of changes to some of them as well. Were there any that caught your attention?
Um, Not really, actually. Honestly, I haven't noticed any of these changes in game. I read them when I saw the patch notes the first time. I think they made the lethality mythics across the board cheaper, and then some changes to like the mythic pass or the mythic, yeah, like actives or passives on the item, but nothing is really important here. IMO, just like normalizing item costs.
Alrighty. And then lastly, as we're getting near to the end of these patch notes, they do have a new rune that's part of the inspiration tree, and how it's described. It gives you a boost in damage and a gold boost when you strike an enemy champion first, um, instead of as opposed to them hitting you. And let's just see basic attacks or abilities against an enemy champion within 0.25 seconds of entering champion combat. Uh, Grants 5 gold and first strike for 3 seconds. First strike causes you to deal 10% extra damage against champions and granting 100% bonus damage dealt as gold. It's a starts as a 25-second cooldown that scales down to 15 seconds based on your level. Um, if you get hit first, then first strike goes on cooldown. I actually had no clue about this rune. What do you think about it so far?
I think it's kind of cool. It's like this is the the power fantasy of kleptomancy brought back into the game, where you just like where klepto was, you just try to get a bunch of procs of it and find the gold bags and make a bunch of money. This one takes out like the constant procs of it and the RNG part and makes it like on a longer cooldown, like you're trying to farm damage and stuff and go for longer trades or deal more damage, however you're trying to do it, to make more gold, which is cool. I like that they actually give you a damage boost for it, like something that you don't normally see in Inspiration, right? Is raw damage boosts. So it's a nice incentive for a lot of champs. I've not gotten to try it on too many champs. I tried it on Draven because like he used to go klepto, and it seems like a good idea to try and hit your spikes early by forcing trades in lane, which is what you're doing anyway. But it might have just been the game that I had tried it where it was really hard to make it work for him. I think it's I think it's a good thing that they've made it so that you can um, knock this passive off like before it happens. I think it'd be like pretty oppressive if you just got to get the buff no matter what. Um, but in that same way, it makes it kind of frustrating sometimes for the user of the rune because if you're not like in complete control of the lane or however it is that you want to proc the item, it makes it really hard to get optimal usage of it in laning scenarios, I think.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely reminds me of Kleptomancy, and it is interesting that gives you a damage boost. I think it'll be pretty tough to play around it as a melee champion, but it'll be super fun to see if you can get away with it as a range champion. I'm glad there's a it's a pretty long cooldown. 20, upwards of, above 20 seconds for the first couple of levels is pretty important. Um, so it doesn't seem get too abused, but yeah, it's cool. And I know people were just gonna take it for the whole preseason probably.
Yeah, just to try it, just to get the gold, baby.
They've also got a couple of updates here for Glacial Augment and Lethal Tempo. Let's go over the Glacial update really quick. So, they took away the part where
Did you cut
basic
out? You cut
attacks
out for me.
slow enemy champions, and instead,
Can you hear me?
wait, what?
Hello? You cut out for me right as you started to say glacial augment.
Oh, my bad. So yeah, let's go over the two glacial or the two changes that they made to Glacial Augment and Lethal Tempo. Starting with Glacial Augment, so they took away the slow on basic attacks, and they're instead giving the part where if you hit, before if you hit them with an item, then it caused the three slow things to come out. But now those glacial rays come out from people just by immobilizing them. So that means that pretty much any champion can just use this rune now, and that's the strength of the slow increases with heal and shield power, and also with AP or AD, and hitting people with this slow also reduces their damage by 15% against your allies, but not yourself for some reason, for 3 seconds. Um, I think that this is a cool change to Glacial Augment that will open it to a lot of more champions to try it out and see if it works for them. I don't know if the numbers are good or broken at this particular moment, but what do you think about this change to Glacial Augment?
I think it's pretty cool. I like it that they've made it so that like anyone can take this rune really and not just people like before that could abuse GLP or Everfrost or whatever the item was at the time. So now it's like since we really only have Everfrost in the game that can immobilize champions, right? Like if you can't take that item, you can't take this rune. And people weren't even taking that rune with that item because you didn't need it if you like landed the root or whatever. So a rework was definitely needed. I think it's cool that it's just on like any given CC, and the scaling on it and the increased damage or the reduced damage. I didn't even realize it did the reduced damage part, but like that makes it especially useful like on support champions. You know, it's the same thing that we've talked about a couple times with um, the fantasy of being a tank or a support that you can make other people do more damage. Like I think that's a good thing to have. So it's similar to that, but instead you're reducing their damage dealt, which is just protecting your carries, and you still get to do engages and cause havoc through slows and stuff. So I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think it definitely brings some creativity back to the game where like now you can just try every champion again with this rune and see how it feels. So I think that's
Right.
kind of interesting. And then they've also made a change to lethal tempo. So I would say they're just completely changing it. And so how it's going to work is it's meant to be as a ramping kind of rune. And so hitting champions gives you a stack of lethal tempo for 6 seconds, stacking up to 6 times. 50%, 15% for melee and 5% for ranged. But then also when you're at 6 stacks, you also gain bonus attack range, and then increases your attack speed cap above 2.5. What do you think about this so far? I think it's weird that it gives you bonus range just for hitting the stack cap, and the stack cap is only 6 auto attacks, so I don't feel like it's that much. And I feel like this is going to be, it's going to feel pretty weird. The first kind of couple of times that you try it out, just getting a 100 bonus attack range for some ranged champions. What do you think about this lethal tempo change?
Yeah, so for me personally, like I had qualms with the old lethal tempo like I think it was really hard and like unnatural to actually use optimally, like it would give you so much attack speed when it was procced, and it would fall off so quickly that like it was I think it was really hard to actually optimally use, and like be able to kite with it and get every auto off that you meant to. And maybe that's just me as a bad AD player saying that, but that's how I felt with it. So I like that it's more of like a consistent thing. You can feel the attack speed ramp up. It's like a constant, like once you're in combat, you're gonna have the same like max attack speed if you get it stacked, right? Like that's how it's gonna work. Um, but sadly, I've not seen anybody like really put it to good use as an AD carry anymore. And it seems like it's mostly a melee user rune, like in the top lane for bruisers like Jax or Gwen, because they get so much more attack speed out of it. Like you can get 90% attack speed at rank 1 or at level 1 just from having this rune. And if you're, Jax or Gwen that can jump in and force that trade really early, it's so much more useful than getting just the like 30% attack speed that you get as an AD carry. And it's way harder to have extended combat in the bottom lane than you do in top and stuff like that. So personally, it's taken away a lot of like a fun rune choice for me. But it's seems pretty powerful with the high attack speed and the bonus range, uh, which is I think more interesting to have at a like not consistent uh, scenario, like where you have some bonus range at some parts of the lane and smaller at others, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how this works out with Akshan and Lucian's passive. You know, if Lucian just stacks it up really fast and then he enjoys the six stack bonus like just fairly quickly. Um, but yeah, I feel like six stacks can build up pretty quickly. For some champions, especially champions that have auto resets. So I'm interested to see who this ends up feeling optimized for and who will really enjoy this rune. But I think it seems pretty good so far for what it is.
Yeah, I think so far in preseason, I've like what you're gonna see if you haven't played yet. You're gonna go into game. You're gonna see two bruisers in the top lane. You're gonna see like Darius and Set both have lethal tempo. You're guaranteed to see one or both of them die like 5 times in the first 3 minutes of the game because they're just gonna be like, I have lethal tempo. It's broken. Let's scrap. I'm gonna see if I do more damage than you. And it's just like old Conquer where people like I mean it's just like Conquer now where people want to get it stacked, but people probably know how it works a little better.
Yeah, for sure. Just incentivizes you to fight for like a little longer to see what happens.
It's like, oh, I'm sure I'll get the range and then we'll be fine.
Yep, and then yeah, that we finally got through all of it. I feel like it's been like an hour or something like that.
I think it actually has been. Holy
Yeah,
shit.
yeah. I guess the last thing that I want to talk about is that they've come out with some cute little skins in this patch, the cafe cuties, um, for Gwen, Soraka, Annie, Bard, and Sivir, and Vladimir. I think they're pretty nice. I really like the Gwen and the Sivir one. What do you think about the skins?
Yeah, they're cuties, you know. I mean, what else am I gonna say? I haven't seen them in game. I don't think. I don't think I've seen anybody use them yet. I don't know if they're released yet. Maybe that's the reason. But
Yeah,
I think I have to pick up the Bard skin. I'm a Bard skin collector, so we'll see how they go.
yeah. Seeing the splash art for the Bard skin is kind of weird, but
But it's pretty funny at the same
I
time.
think
What do you
yeah,
think?
it's pretty like it's fun at the same time. It feels like a definitely not kind of skin for some reason.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, so we made it through the patch notes, at least the parts that we care about. Um, and now we can just finish out this episode with a little bit of roster moves that happened around, which is not too much to talk about. So I'll just run through a couple of them. For TSM, they've picked up a new coach officially, Chowie from. I actually don't remember where he came from. If you do,
I think if I remember right, he was like a Vietnam pro. I think he was on.
I thought he played for AHQ.
Yeah, is that not Vietnam? I feel bad now.
That's like the Flash Wolves region. So like or where PSD Talon is right
Oh,
now, I
okay,
guess.
okay, okay. Yeah.
Um,
I think yeah, you're right. He played HQ. It was like in like he was on. It was either he took Westor's place or Westor took his place or something like that, right? Or like he was a sub, something. I don't know. Apparently, like he. I mean, he is. I was reading. I think the when it got leaked or announced or whatever. I don't know if it's like TSM official yet or if it's just like reported, right? Um,
oh, okay.
is that he was like he's a big fucking deal like in China and Southeast Asia. Like he was like the pro player. I it seems like to me I remember that being Westward, but this is like I guess like Chawi is like the goat of those regions kind of thing. So um
Really?
I feel like it sounds like it's like he's a big deal pickup, but I don't remember too much about him, so it's like it's a little out of left field like hearing the name. It's I liked all the jokes of like they spelled Chovy wrong. Like this isn't the Chovy they were talking about, Reginald. Like so it's
Yeah.
pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we'll see if this really works out. But I think it's interesting because it could spell more imports coming TSM's way, or maybe for foreshadowing that. But yeah, I can't remember if this is an official move yet or not. But speaking of official, and I'm glad that we're recording today because most of the Team Liquid members have now been announced, and I think everyone but the mid laner, and even that was low key kind of leaked through like some YouTube playlist shenanigans earlier today. So Bwipo, Hansama, Santorin, and Core JJ were all announced to be playing for Team Liquid for next year, and we've already discussed that this team seems pretty exciting. I'm actually kind of surprised that like people are so really high on Hansama because I didn't know he was like that. So that makes me hyped for him to come over
Dude,
this way and see how he
Hans is a
is.
beast. Hans is definitely a beast. He's like, he's actually one of my favorite like league streamers or ADC streamers to watch. Like he's a big like he plays like chat ADCs. He's like a Draven player and like he'll play Lucian and other stuff. And it's like he always wants to win lane. Like if you watch him in solo queue, it's like he'll like flame his supports practically in champ select. Like if they don't take ignite because like they're gonna fight level 1 and 2 and they're gonna win lane. It's so fun. It's so fun to watch him play. And he was the like shining star of Rogue like in Worlds this year. I thought too like
Yeah,
where like Rogue didn't look very good, but even in their losses, Hans even though he's playing AD carry like a useless role when you're behind and stuff, right? He was like pulling off some sick plays and like escapes and stuff when he could. So I'm excited for Hans. I think Hans and Core JJ is honestly like the highlight of the Team Liquid roster. So we'll see how it goes. I don't know. Maybe I'm going too crazy, but that's my favorite part so far.
yeah, I'm definitely excited to see this roster play out next year. I just hope that they all get here in time. They can all play for the lock-in tournament and stuff like that. Um,
True.
that's all I pray for, and that they can all play because of import restrictions. We'll see how that really pans out. Speaking of Rogue, another player from Rogue has come over to NA to play for Evil Geniuses. So it's official now that Inspired will be the jungler for Evil Geniuses, and so we know what happened to contracts. He'll be moving to another team, but sounds like Svenskeren might have to find a new home.
You're cutting out for me a little bit.
Oh, okay. I was just saying that now that Inspired is going to be the official jungler for Evil Geniuses, then sounds like Svenskeren is going to have to find a new home.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that CLG officially announced contracts too. I don't know if they already did that or they just
Yeah.
let out another welcome video. But yeah, so the options are slimming for Svensker, and I feel like to find a spot on a team. I don't know. I don't know what he'll end up doing if he'll stay in NA and play academy or if there's a team that I'm not thinking of that still needs a jungler. So we'll see how that goes.
Yep, and speaking of junglers, Dignitas also announced a new jungler as well. They picked up River from PSG Talon. I so I saw some sentiment that people are excited for this and that he was fairly good out of that team, but in my opinion, this kind of came out of nowhere. And I don't know how I feel about like one-off imports. We've seen it a couple of times, like bringing over Levi, or even bringing over like Jose Diodo. Like there have people we've been. It sounds like an exciting move, but the team that he goes to, if the team isn't good overall, then like does it really matter? You know, is it gonna be like another situation of like Lyra struggling and Team Envy for fucking 10 years and feeling like he's a good player on a bad team? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I hope at this point that like especially you're playing like a guy like River who's been on PSG and like this last year PSG was really good. Like I know like they didn't win Worlds or anything or win MSI, but they were like nearly undefeated in their own region, won both splits, like you go to both MSI and Worlds and look like a world's caliber team, right? Not just like a random like, oh, why are they giving this region a spot? Like they just, there's obviously no competition in that region, whatever, whatever. Like that team has to be like filled with good players. Like that's not just like they're randomly shit stomping people. So I think you hope that anybody that's coming over from situations like that are like actively ready to like compete in a different region where they think it'll be like more fulfilling or whatever, because like obviously if you just wanted to go to worlds again, you probably just try and stay on the same team, right? And then PSG just runs it back, doesn't lose a game for the next 3 years or whatever, right? And they're always in worlds or whatever. But if you like, I'm sure he's getting paid more money to come to NA, right? Like I'm not saying that it's a purely competitive, kind of situation, but I would hope that that's part of it, that like he thinks this is a good thing as a competitor. Plus, he gets a bunch of money rather than just like, yeah, I'm gonna go send it in for the paycheck and fuck off in an A on Dignitas because that sounds better than living wherever I was before.
Yeah, I hope that he's happy with the move with Dignitas Quantum Pay. Next up, we can talk about Cloud9, who put out a video about their official roster stuff. Um, Long story short, it's a bunch of fuckery, I guess, where they say they'll play whoever is the best player, for the LCS main roster. But so far, all the three Korean imports, so to speak, are a real deal. So they will be bringing on Summit, Berserker, and Winsome for top lane AD and support. I think the interesting thing here is that so far they haven't gotten rid of Sven, so Sven is still on Cloud9 technically, and allegedly they'll play whoever's the better player. But I don't know what's gonna go on there, and I don't know what's gonna happen to Sven. And it's a shame that he comes to Cloud9. He brings them two championships, 2020 and 2021 spring, and then
Hmm.
more competition is coming his way with Hansama and stuff like that. And maybe he might not have a starting spot for this upcoming split. So I just think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, I think it makes sense, like, if you're C9, like, to say, like, what you said, right? Like, we're playing the best players. Like, I get that. But it is a weird, like, outward facing thing to say, like, we're signing Berserker and Winsome as our, starter AD and support kind of thing. But at the same time, we're still going to Korea and doing a boot camp and all that. Like, I don't know. I don't know that there's a better way to say it. Like, do I want you to say you imported these guys just to be academy players, and then a month later say like, oh, we're promoting them off the academy roster? I don't know, but it does feel weird. Like, it just seems weird because we're like at this point of like LCS where I don't think you can have two, like, it feels bad to have two LCS level players on your same team and have one of them running an academy like never to see the light of day kind of thing, because that's what'll happen with Sven and Berserker if Berserker's any good, right? Like if Berserker's not the like hyped like Korean ADC talent that he is to be, like he's not the next Gumayushi and Uzi and Deft and Ruler, like whatever, like then it's probably fine to have him in academy like for at least a year. I get that, but if he is, you don't want to see that stuck there. If he's just gonna roll over academy like Sven kind of did at summer of last year when he was there for a little bit. I don't want to see him stuck there, or I don't want to see either of them stuck there. So I'd rather them be able to just make the decision and get one of the guys to a team where they can play, um, than have this weird like limbo couple months where yeah they're both signed and they're both technically starters until we decide which one is not. So we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely think that they have two superstar kind of AD carries on their roster, officially announced, and I'd be ashamed if just one of them has to play academy for like a whole split, or if they keep switching back and forth for a while on that one. It's going to be kind of weird. And they also have two supports as well, so they officially announced that they will be trying out Winsome and Isles as well. So it's going to be weird. It's going to be a weird like oh yeah, I guess it is a weird Cloud9 situation. Back then when they had like Golden Glue, Sensgaren, Jensen, and in Blabber, and it was like mix matching these four different mid laner jungle combinations and who's going to work best with the other one and stuff like that. Like they've
Hmm.
kind of got that here again with two different AD carries and two different supports
Benching
and
Jensen and Sneaky, like
yeah
all
and
of it.
yeah
Cloud9 is. notorious for the weird scenarios, right?
Yeah, but this time they don't have Reaper, so I wonder how they'll get out of this pickle.
True. Now it's just Fudge making the decisions. It seems like.
Yeah. Oh, and I kind of skipped over it, but they announced that Fudge will be the mid laner as well.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
True. True.
and
True.
same thing there. They have somebody in their academy, I believe, named Copy, and then supposedly he'll contest for the mid lane spot as well. But we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. They have Fudge like literally next to Jack, like saying like, "Hey, we signed these guys. Like, he's the guy that's talking to Summit to say like, hey, come join this team. I'm actually a good mid laner. Trust me, we'll win worlds," kind of thing. And then at the same time, you're expecting Copy to believe like, yeah, this guy isn't the like obvious favorite for the role. Like, I have a chance, dude, for sure, bro. Like, you're gonna bench Fudge over me, right? Like, for sure. There's no way. Don't believe him, Copy.
Yeah. Um, Moving on to other teams, FlyQuest announced Toucouille officially.
Toucouille. Toucouille.
Okay, that's what I wanted to say. Toucouille. I kind of like that name. It's kind of funny. So
Don't Google Translate it. As he said, don't Google Translate it.
oh really? Okay, I won't
Yeah.
then, or maybe I will after a drink or two. But yeah,
Yeah, do it just so you know what it is, but don't,
okay,
don't do it at the same time.
okay. I'm not sure if I should listen to you or if I should. So yeah, he's officially on FlyQuest. I think we're still waiting to hear about their jungler, but that rounds out another member for FlyQuest as well. And then I don't know if we talked about this last week, but CLG's got their full roster lined up. So that's going to be Palafox, Contracts, Jenkins, Luger, and Poom. You want to say anything about any of those two rosters?
Um, I don't know. For FlyQuest, I think I'm still like not really sure. I think I like most of FlyQuest. Like, right, they're bringing back Johnson and Afremu. I like that bot lane combo. It'll be interesting to see how Tukui does. And if they keep Jose Diodo, I think that's a good pickup. I forget who's their top laner. Is it Kumo still? Have they announced that?
Yeah, I guess they haven't announced that yet, but yeah, last year it was Kumo for both Academy and LCS. So I hope they get something there.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
should have somebody cut Kumo some slack.
there's a lot. You know who's out there. Solo is out there. Let's get this man a team.
Oh,
I'm
true.
kidding,
Solo,
but yeah,
yeah.
there's a couple of
Back
people
to
like
FlyQuest.
Solo, Hanser. I think there's a couple of people who are free agents right now that are top laners. And we could talk
Yeah.
about that more next week about who's still left over as free agents and stuff like that.
Yeah, we gotta figure out how we're gonna cut this one off. I don't know if we're ever gonna end at this rate. Yeah, I think I like parts of the FlyQuest roster, but I'm not convinced that they'll be that good as a team or like very like super competitive. And then CLG, I think I'm like interested to see how they'll do. I don't have a lot of hope for them like to, like break this like 8, 9, 10th place curse that they've been in. But I do think that they have some promising players. Like I think we talked about it a little bit. I'm not sure how much, but I think Palafox, like he's had both success and failures. Like last year was pretty rough for him, but he looked pretty good in academy if I remember right. Um, and then I think Luger and Poom like should be like a good bot lane all around. But I don't know if that'll be enough to like carry them to super heights.
Yeah, and then same thing with Jenkins. Like he looked good at some times on Team Liquid last summer, but in the end, speaking of last summer, we saw that time when I think it was FlyQuest who like subbed in their whole academy team, and they were actually doing pretty well for like one week they went 3-0, and then the next week they went 0-3, and then yeah, that's like I think there's could be some exciting moments for this team, but is it likely that they're going to break into top four? I'm not. I would think that's unlikely,
Yeah,
but we'll
it would
but
take
we'll
a
see.
lot. It would take a
Yeah,
lot.
it would take a lot, but especially with these players who they're not they're not new players. Actually, I found out that Jenkins, the top laner, I found out he played in Scouting Grounds 2016. So he's been around the academy system for a couple of years as well. I believe he spent 2 or 3 years on Team Liquid Academy itself. Same thing for Palafox and Academy for several years. Contracts, he's been in and around LCS and LCS Academy for 5 years. And then Puma and Luger are like the newest ones, but even then, they just spent a whole year in an LCS Academy. So they're not brand new, fresh off the boat rookies. but it'll be cool to see them come from different places and all into this team. Contracts came from EG, Jenkins from Team Liquid, Poom and Luger from 100 Thieves, and yeah, just a bunch of people who are just now playing together as an organized team for the first time, and we'll see how they do together. That'll be exciting.
Yeah, and I think hopefully that for all of them, this is like a sense of stability on this team too. Like you're not worried that you're gonna get subbed out next week for the academy guys, or like you're not being subbed in and in place of an Alfari or something. Like that's like this is your starting spot. You are the starting five, and I mean we don't know anything about what CLG Academy looks like to say for sure that the guys below them don't have a chance, right? But like that should come with some solace that like you're gonna get to play LCS and nothing's gonna stop you at least now.
Yep. Yeah, I like that so far actually. That like this is your spot. Like make the best of it for the whole split,
Right.
hopefully. And then lastly, we can just talk about some final things. I think I saw Poe Belter put out a video that it was like 3 minutes, but I still didn't watch it. Reading through some comments, it sounds like he's going to be taking a break at least for the upcoming split.
Hmm.
And there's a couple of other players like that as well. I think Demonte's taking a break, Demonte's becoming a content creator, I believe. Yeah, so that's an update with Poe Belter. I guess he won't be taking part of next split.
Yeah, a little sad to see, but
Yeah,
you know, good for him if like that's not just he didn't get a spot. It's like he wants to do it to better himself and all that kind of stuff. Like that's the jam.
for sure. I'm sure there'll be a team that will pick him up for summer, or at least as a substitute, or maybe like an assistant coach or something like that, or like
Yeah.
a role coach. I think there's some use for Poe Belter there. I don't think his career can die out just yet. Um, I saw that there was some shenanigans going on with T1 Kana, his agency, and the other team called Nong Shim. Um, I don't really know about the details that went on there. I just know some fuckery happened.
Hmm.
On
Yeah,
Saturday,
I think I
I'll go
tried to
ahead.
read some of it. I tried to read some of it, but that's about as much as unless you're like a super Canna fan, like that's about as much you want to get into it. It was some fuckery.
Yeah, and there was like some apologies put out like on this side and that side as well, and I think it's all resolved by now. And I don't even know what happened. I don't know if Kana's being transferred or whatnot. It's I wasn't that interested in it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a bit of he said, she said between like the teams and his agent and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. As long as he's gonna be cool playing League wherever he ends up, hopefully that's okay for him.
Yeah, but there's a ton of movement in LCK right now. Maybe we'll catch up on that some other time. Um, on Saturday, Riot put out a video just showcasing a little bit more about Project L, their fighting game. Were you able to catch any of that?
Yeah, I saw the video. I've got a buddy or a few buddies that are into fighting games, so I've had some chats about that one so far. But I thought it looked cool. I really liked the look of it so far.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty cool. I think that the gameplay and combat is pretty cool. Well, I think it's cool because it's based off of League characters. Personally, I'm not good at Street Fighter or
Oh, I'm terrible at fighting
yeah,
games. I
or
can only play Smash. That's the only one I
yeah, I
like
can only play
can get
Smash. I
close to.
used to really like Tekken, but like Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom, I'm just absolutely terrible at them. And also, when I was kind of looking at the gameplay for this, like some of the like, there's a lot of effects in it where like for example, Darius swinging his axe. There's like a lot of like blur that goes on with that, and like I feel like it would be hard for me to keep up, I guess. And there's also seems to be just like Marvel vs. Capcom, because of like the assist nature of this game. There's a lot of like combos and stuff like that, and I wonder, Marvel vs. Capcom, the one that I played, number three, Ultimate.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like, I guess I don't know what to call them, like infinite loops, I guess, where like once you get hit by the first part of it, like expect to be like chain stunned into this long 20 hit combo as long as the person does it right, and then like
Right.
you might get 100 to zeroed just because like you let it happen, kind of thing. So I hope that for my enjoyment, I hope that Project L isn't like that. Yeah, I like some juggles and combos where like if it can last for like 5 or 6 hits, that's cool, and then it can take off like a significant chunk of your health. Let's say like 30% of it because you get caught in this combo. Um, I don't know. I kind of ranted on too long about that. but they showed a little bit
It's
of
all
that
right.
gameplay.
I think, in my opinion, I think it's really hard, especially if you're not like a fighter, like a super in tune fighter game player. Like we saw 6 minutes of footage of the devs showing some footage of the game and talking about like netcode and stuff. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't get too worried about it. My guess about it in general, if you're like somebody who doesn't play fighting games a lot, then probably just like Valorant was with people who play CS:GO, and just like League was with people who play Dota and other MOBAs. I think this is going to be like Riot makes games to appeal to the general populace, and it shouldn't be something that's like super gatekeepy by like through like super technical combos that you have to know like quarter circles and Z like motions and stuff like that to do like most of the stuff that your character can do. So like well, I mean, we know so little about the game now, but it's my guess is it'll be simpler and like more accessible than most fighting games. So if you don't have experience, give it a shot. And then if you do have experience, it's probably going to be like really technically well made and have like a huge player base and like the support of a major studio behind it. So like that's the hopes for this kind of game. I think that you'd have a lot of like that kind of support structure and people to play against and ease of access to it that should make it a good game. But obviously we know so little, so we'll see as more announcements come now.
Yeah, it's actually like a little surprising to me how many like people who have played League of Legends, they just give Valorant a try just because like it's related property, and then like a lot of the people who they played League with, they also give Valorant a try. So you try it with them, and then you're playing a shooting game that before maybe you might have never even given a shooting game a chance, but just because it's a Riot game, right, a Riot Games game, then you give Valorant a shot, and then turns out you like it. Like actually, I feel like I
Yeah,
know so many people on my friends list that has happened to. Like it's the game made by the people of League of Legends. Like just give it a try, and like sure, why not? Even though that might have not been your thing before, or you might have had some apprehension to trying it. That was the gateway to doing so. And yeah, so I hope that you don't have to do some fucking shenanigans with your analog stick, or like feel like you have to buy a gamepad to enjoy the game. I hope it is.
yeah,
I
I
hope it
bet.
is just like minor tilts or something like that for like gameplay inputs to like change up the attacks or something like that.
Yeah, we'll see, we'll see. And yeah, like you said about the Valorant thing, like I mean, it's this game will be even worse, right? About it, like people who have never like heard that fighter games exist will be like, oh shit, that's League of Legends characters. I'm down, dude. I'll be an RE main.
Yeah, yeah,
Where they
yeah.
have to punch people. I'm afraid to punch people. I don't want to play this game anymore.
Yeah, I think I'm interested, but I don't know if I'll like take it seriously or anything because yeah, I don't have a lot of fighting game experience.
Yeah.
All right, I'm pretty pooped out. I have written here we were gonna talk about Arcane, but
At this point, we have not enough time to do that for sure, right? Next, we'll be back in 3 days with the next episode 37 and a half, where it'll just be another hour of arcane content.
yeah, I actually saw that like Travis Gafford and Mark Z are kind of doing this where they talk about you know Arcane for like 40 minutes, and I was like, holy shit, I don't think I have 10 minutes of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, honestly.
Because I'm not a critic or anything like that, and I'm not gonna dive deep into the fucking underpinnings of Jace's motives and his personality or something like that, and like who is the real villain of the series. Or, I'm not gonna get into all that, but we'll talk about it another time.
Then again, at the same time, I didn't even get ranked in League this season, and we just spent an hour and a half or an hour and 40 minutes talking about the preseason patch notes. So give that a whirl in your head how that one works out.
But yeah, I don't know about 37 and a half, but that will be it for episode 37 of On the Hunt, the League of Legends podcast. Or to subscribe to our podcast in the service that you're listening to us on, if you haven't already. And we'd appreciate it if you also give us a rating or hit the like button to show some support as well. And you can find us on YouTube as well as your podcast player of choice, from Apple Podcasts to Spotify and so forth. We'll see you all next time for another episode of On the Hunt.